Be bold. Be brave. Be extraordinary. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be curious. Be true. Be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Katherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Katherine McIntosh.
All right, everyone. I'm so excited for today's show. Welcome, welcome. So, we're going to do a little bit of an extension on last week's show. We talked about your symptoms and that, your symptoms are a window into something more. And I had the pleasure this week of working with some people and making some pretty big dents in their healing journey. And so I thought we would talk about getting underneath the symptom and how to do that and walk you through a process that will probably be beneficial for almost every sort of challenge or roadblock or struggle that you face. And so symptoms are simply a they're information, and symptoms really show us like that there's something else going on. The sort of challenge is that in Western medicine, we tend to try to treat the symptom with either a diagnosis or a prognosis or a medicine or an antibiotic, but that doesn't necessarily resolve the symptom. It just makes the symptom kind of dissipate or disappear. So we think that the thing has been healed. But the truth is that true healing happens when we go underneath the symptom. So in today's episode, we are going to dive deeper underneath the symptom. And if you're listening live, welcome. I am probably going to take live callers, right? And we'll see what we can do. But before we take live callers, and of course it has to deal with, so if you're dealing with a symptom in your life and you haven't been able to resolve it or get clarity or solve it, this would be a great time for you to be able to call in, and I'll give you the number so you can call in, but we're not going to take you right away. Um, and we'll just yeah, perfect. Okay. So if you want to write this number down, and when we're ready, you can call in, or you can call in and wait. It's up to you. But the number for live callers is 202-570-7057. And part of why I started this show is because I wanted to have real live conversations with those of you that are dealing with a symptom or a challenge or a struggle in your life, and you feel kind of like you have blinders on. And the truth is, we all have blinders on. And what we tend to do with a symptom is we go, I know what this is. This is blank. And we diagnose the symptom. So if we have a symptom that maybe doctors might call it or label it or diagnose it as irritable bowel syndrome, right? Or you have symptoms that include your body and lethargy and not feeling great, you might get labeled as having a hyper or hypothyroid. Now, it's great information, but here's what I want you to think about: is the symptom is simply revealing where something went wrong, right? And so if we take a symptom, the very first thing you want to do is you want to stop labeling your diagnosis. So if you've been labeled with an autoimmune deficiency, it's great information. What does that mean? It means something in your autoimmune is off. And if your autoimmune is off, your autoimmune isn't necessarily the root cause, it's the symptom. And so we have to go underneath the surface, right? And so The first step, like I said, is to stop diagnosing or labeling your diagnosis. So, if you're someone who is looking to transform their body, maybe lose a few pounds, the last thing you want to keep saying to yourself and others around you is, I need to lose weight. Why? Because you're making it harder on your body to change it because you're labeling it. Right. So if any of you have ever been in a long-term relationship and you're in a relationship with someone, they say, "Oh, you're so blah, blah, blah," or "Oh, you never listen to me." What does that do? That normally invokes you to become angry because you're like, "I am listening," or "I am," right? And then we fight against. And so every time that we say out loud to ourselves or others, right, something, we are basically making it harder for our body to heal the thing we're trying to heal from. And 99% of the time, the thing we're trying, like the symptom we're trying to heal, is not what actually needs true healing. When the true healing happens, the symptom goes away. And I've seen this over and over and over again all over the world for the last 20 years of people I've worked on who come to me with something they've never been able to change, and then they're able to change it. And it's because I have a little bit of a different philosophy. I tend to believe, and this may ruffle a lot of feathers, especially in Western medicine. I tend to believe that everything is solvable in one way or another, but it takes a combination of a lot of things. And the first thing that is the most important is your belief system on whether or not you can do it. So, someone who comes into this life or starts to develop a belief that they can be a successful business person has a much more likelihood of becoming successful because they have a belief. Now, there's other people who try to be successful, but their belief underneath the surface is it's going to be hard. It's never going to be enough. Most successful people in business and in life, whether it's relationship or business or health, they believe it's possible. They might not know how, but they believe in themselves to be able to overcome the obstacles they've been given. And it's the same thing with healing in your health. When you are told you have an incurable dis-ease, what it creates a disbelief that there's nothing in the world that can cure it. So already you're dealing with a giant roadblock. And so the magic comes in recognizing the symptom, not ignoring the symptom, because the symptom is information. And if you didn't catch last week's episode, I talk about symptoms, highly recommend listening to it. But for now, listen to this one. Stay tuned. If you have been dealing with a health issue in particular and you would like some feedback and possible information, you're welcome to call in live at 202-570-7057. And after the break, we'll take live callers. But for now, it's about stopping the messages you're telling yourself about what you think you have. So if you go to the doctor and they tell you have irritable bowel, you keep trying to solve the irritable bowel. The irritable bowel is the symptom, right? And it might not even be the right label of that symptom, right? A lot of people get misdiagnosed with diseases because the truth is we're all trying to figure it out. Yes, a doctor has a medical degree, and I love Western medicine, and it is brilliant. And I was on the plane yesterday from Florida back to Aspen, Colorado, and I sat next to a nurse who's also, she basically teaches nursing and teaches in colleges. And and so we started to have this conversation. And she said, what we're doing now in nursing is we're trying to diagnose the whole situation, the whole health of the patient. And So I said, "Well, what are you doing?" They're like, "We're starting to ask them life questions. Are they stressed? What's going on in their life?" And here is my favorite question. So I'm going to just make sure I'm on track because I took some notes to make sure. So with number one, stop diagnosing or labeling your diagnosis. Number two, right? Because the more you label it, the more you create it. The more you say you're broke, the more you believe you're broke, right? Number two is if you want true healing, you have to go underneath the symptom. And the way to do that is to start asking questions. And so something might present itself as Lyme disease or hypothyroid or hyperthyroid or slow metabolism or irritable bowel or leaky gut. They might present as that, and it might be that, but stop saying that you have that. And then you want to ask this question, okay, so when did this symptom start showing up in your life? That's number two. And this is part of number two. When did that symptom start showing up in your life? Just ask, right? I was diagnosed with irritable bowel 20 plus years ago when I was in a miserable marriage and I was overworking and I hated my personal life and my husband was abusive and he was an alcoholic and a whole lot of other things. I knew not to walk down the aisle, but I ignored my intuition. And so the pills that I was given to help sort of alleviate the symptoms of irritable bowel didn't work. So if you're given a prescription to navigate a symptom and the prescription doesn't work, it's not the right symptom. And the best way to heal a symptom is to not label it, not try and diagnose it, but to go, okay, when did this symptom start occurring in my life? Okay, so for me, it was irritable bowel. When did it happen? It happened in my late 20s in a bad marriage. What else was going on in my life? Were there any specific events in which I could trace back? And I had several abusive instances where I had to call the cops. I had to call 911 because my husband tried to kill himself. Like all this stuff happened. And then my gut, right? My gut started talking really loudly. The irritable bowel would have never gone away if, or whatever you want to call what was happening in my belly, wouldn't go away until I looked at what was going on in my life. What was I ignoring? And so you want to ask, okay, when did the symptoms start appearing? Was there an event or something that was happening around that time in your life? And most people, believe it or not, will be able to identify something in which a sort of a switch flipped, right? I started gaining weight in my teen years after my brother tried to, I had an incident with my brother. I moved out of my house. I felt unsafe. I moved back in my house 3 months later after summer was over to finish my senior year in high school. And it was in the moving back in that my body started putting on lots of weight unexplainably. What was the root of the symptom? I was living in an unsafe environment. Now, it took me till my mid 30s, almost 40s, to figure that out. And so I spent 20 years dieting, trying to lose the weight. I spent, 20 years trying to exercise it off. I spent like obsessing, and it wasn't until I began to heal my nervous system with somatic exercises, until I began to heal like these pains, but guess what? It didn't have to be traumatic, and it wasn't traumatic at all. It was actually quite easy. The only time it was traumatic is when I was in my way and tried to force myself to go on a diet to lose weight. That's when the trauma reappeared. But if I went underneath the surface and realized, wow, the root of my weight gain was the fact that I didn't feel safe, then I started to address that safety and create an environment in which no matter what situation I was in, I started to feel safe in my body. And that's when my body started changing. Right. So there's all these beautiful ways, but it's about being curious of when did these symptoms start and what was going on in my life around that time, and then digging deeper and digging deeper and digging deeper. And here's the third one that I think is not talked about a lot, which most of us have some form of trauma that is living in our body that started between in the womb up until 3 years old. And from the time that so almost 4 years total. So from the womb, right, all the way to whatever age we were, right, 3, though that time period in our life is predominantly nonverbal and preverbal. It's almost all energetic. And so imagine as a baby, you have a trauma that happens to you, and you don't have like the adult cognitive capacities with your verbal, right? And when you don't have the capacities with your verbal words, but you're verbally trying to process something as an adult, right? Then it will create a problem that could take many, many years to develop, like it takes a flower a very long time. Like I have an orchid in my house that a year ago I almost threw away because all the leaves fell off, all the buds fell off. And for some reason I decided to keep this orchid, and I started watering it, and I started talking to it, and I put it in a happy place in my house. And this morning, I got back from my trip. I was gone for a week, and I was looking at the orchid, and there's like 7 new buds. They had none of them have opened and bloomed yet. I was like, wow, imagine if I would have thrown that away. And so sometimes dis-ease starts at a very young age in the body as a trauma that doesn't have verbal capacities. And so what we want to do is we want to start to activate the nonverbal, preverbal cues in the body. And how do we do that? We do that by energetically hanging out with those spots in the body that might be the root of the symptom. So I'll give you an example with your irritable bowel. The root of the symptom was in my belly, and it showed up and presented itself as massive pain, as bloating. I couldn't eat. I'd be like in fetal position after eating. I had very little energy. I was like irritable. I felt lethargic, right? All of those symptoms. And so one of the things that started to heal it is I went to an energy worker. It was my first experience with an energy worker. She put her hands on my belly and she said, "What does your body know?" And I went, "Oh my God, I don't feel safe." I was in a marriage that I didn't feel safe in. I was in a marriage I didn't feel seen in. I was in a marriage where I was doing all the work, right? And it was exhausting. And somewhere in there, my gut knew that it was time to leave, but I was trying to stay married in a very unsafe uh, household. And I used to say at that time period, you never know what happens behind closed doors. And so, one of these things that really started to change the symptoms was this woman just hanging out, being curious, asking questions. And for me, the process was to not engage my logical head. Your logical head cannot solve the symptoms your body's experiencing. And so what happens is we get a diagnosis and we go on this like lifelong journey. Oh my gosh, I'm overweight. It's because my mom put me on diet pills at 10. So I'm going to have to try and solve my eating problems with food. And it's like, no, you actually have to get underneath the surface. If you're 10 years old and if you are listening to this and this is something similar to your story, and your mother put you on diet pills or told you you were overweight or you needed to lose weight at like 8, 9, or 10, what she was doing in the root of the trauma is probably somewhere along the lines of giving you a message that you're not good enough. You're not skinny enough, you're not pretty enough, you don't fit the image that she would feel comfortable with you fitting, so you're never accepted. So you create this identity, and for most of us, it's really unconscious that we do this. We create an identity that we're not enough, that we're not good enough. We create an identity that we're not lovable. We create an identity that no one will love us. We create an identity that we don't deserve or we're not worthy. And actually, those specific energetic messages are usually the root cause of almost all symptoms. I know it sounds crazy. And so, how do we navigate that? One of the ways to do that is to sit with the body, to sit with the area. So, if you've had heart tremors or heart problems, you can put your hand on your heart. And instead of trying to fix it or solve it or figure it out or use your sort of verbal capacities, you want to tap into the nonverbal, preverbal, right? And the way I could give an analogy is if you're in the middle of an extremely intimate experience with your partner and you're, in the act of lovemaking and being intimate, and all of a sudden they start talking about business or the groceries or, that they left the paper towels out or they need to, buy medicine from Target or whatever it is, it kills the mood because what? They've just engaged the brain, the cognitive part of your brain in a pre-verbal, nonverbal experience. And anytime we insert our cognition into a pre-verbal, nonverbal experience, we stop the magic of the energy cycling through to healing, right? An orgasm is a healing experience. It's a massive release. It's also, increases serotonin and endorphins. It decreases cortisol, but you get your cognitive brain in that act of the middle of an orgasm, it is going to disrupt the transformation. It's going to disrupt the energy, right? And so it's really important if you're someone who is on your own internal or external healing journey, right? Is most of your symptoms are pre-verbal, nonverbal. Now, I am, an intuitive consultant. I, yes, use words and verbal, but I almost always know that the true healing happens energetically. The true transformation, the true clarity happens energetically. And so it's sitting with the energy of whatever's going on long enough to not label it, to not diagnose it, to not make it wrong, but to sit with it so it can give you energetic information back. And you do not need to use your cognitive brain to process. You need to use your nonverbal, preverbal energies in order to cycle through the healing. And so I always say you can't talk your way out of a healing, right? Einstein says you can't solve your problems in the same way you created them, right? Verbal processing, although it is helpful, isn't necessarily the meat and potatoes. There's now lots of evidence of sort of alternative therapies and alternative healing modalities like meditation, like breath work, right? Like a lot of sort of somatic experiences coupled with energy, coupled with breath. It's why a lot of people are, navigating towards alternative therapies because there's something else required on top of just using your brain to try to figure it out. Your brain did not get you into the trauma, so your brain is not going to get you out of the trauma. Right? I'm going to say that one more time because I think this is really important. Your brain did not get you into the trauma, so your brain cannot get you out of the trauma. Right? Really, really important. Right. So one of the comments is I had medication for my thyroid for 18 years. I asked my body what it wanted, and now I am 95% better. Right. May not need meds anymore. And my doctor was very surprised, to say the least. Yeah. So here's what I believe. And my belief is that because our body is 60 to 76% water, it it thrives on energy. So if you keep delivering an energetic message that your body is the problem, that you're overweight, that you're the problem, that you can never solve it, that you have an incurable disease, that you've been diagnosed with something that you're really scared about, and you keep labeling that diagnosis and telling everyone you have it, you're solidifying the water in your body. Water, right, responds to energy. There was studies with Dr. Emoto around water, and when he put different messages on the water created different crystals. So if he put the word hate on a glass of water, the crystals in that glass of water would be deformed, they'd be darker in color, right? In contrast, when he put the word love or gratitude on a crystal, the crystal would be bright and white and almost like a snowflake and have these really beautiful, intricate patterns. So vibration matters. And every time you keep saying you have this thing, you are robbing the body of its natural ability to heal itself. Right? I am an expert at being able to match people's bodies to help their body heal itself. I'm not the healer. I'm just the conduit, right? And all of us have the capacity to be a conduit for transformation in our own lives as well as in other lives, right? Like I've started teaching an online course how to teach people how to be more present with energy so that they can go deeper no matter what modality they use. If they're a coach, if they're a therapist, if they're a massage therapist, if they're an acupuncturist, being able to match what you're doing on the physical plane, as well as meet the body underneath on the energetic plane, really helps symptoms disappear. But here's the beauty is it also helps the body heal, right? Like cancer happens not because it's in a localized spot, but because the red blood cells and the white blood cells are off, and where the body processes blood cells, red and white blood cells, is in the bones. So you want to get to the bones instead of the symptom of where the cancer is appearing. Right. And so there's all these different ways in which you can equip yourself, right? You can't talk your way out of it, but you can equip yourself to be present with you or present with others in a way that gets underneath the symptom. So we are going to take a break. And when we get back from break, if you are somebody who's been dealing with something in your life, a physical symptom, and here's my philosophy. If you've had a physical symptom for longer than 2, 3, 4 years, and you keep trying to solve this medical symptom with something, and it hasn't transformed in the way you'd like, right? We can go underneath the surface to see what's actually going on in your body. And that's when I believe true healing happens, because it's consciousness meets the physical, meets the energetic, meets a possibility that exists in the field, exists in the universe. The pieces just haven't quite come into alignment for you to receive the possibility, right? So stay tuned. If you have something you would like me to talk you through, you can call in at 202-570-7057, and we'll be back after the break. Stay tuned.
OMTimes TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Katherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. for private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone. Go to katherinemcintosh.com. KatherineMcintosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
All right, so welcome back. We are talking about symptoms and how to get underneath the symptoms. So I'm going to give a little example, and if you are listening and would like to call in and you have a symptom that you have been diagnosed with or something that keeps happening and you haven't been able to resolve it, you can call in live and I will do my best to talk you through it and hopefully have you leaving with a little bit more clarity. And the number is 202-570-7057. And so, I'll give you an example. This importance of not being so caught up in labeling what you think something is, right? And I watch this with people in business where they get stuck to an identity. They're like, I'm this and I do this and I'm this. And then all of a sudden they've evolved and they've changed, or they have a spiritual awakening, or they have a life shift and a life path shift. And then they really struggle to unwind the identity they built for themselves. And so it's the same thing with the body. It's the same thing with relationships. It's the same thing with your wealth and money. The identities that you label yourself with matter. And the more that you keep validating the negative identities, the identities you don't want to have, the harder it becomes to change it. And so I'll give you an example. Back when I was in grad school, I, I had been pretty successful in my mid to early 20s. And then I, had my sort of life body breakdown and had an epiphany to quit selling real estate, quit making the money I was making, and go to grad school. So I packed up my bags, I moved across country, and I attended Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado to get my master's in somatic psychology because I was fascinated by this mind-body connection, since I was able to have such profound healing experiences by not using talk therapy, by connecting the mind and body together, by including the energy and the nonverbal, preverbal. And when I got to grad school, I was a broke grad student. I wasn't making the multiple six figures I was making. I had lost most of my money in a very expensive divorce. So it was kind of starting over. And I remember kind of being bummed out that I didn't have the same level of income. I didn't have the same resources. And so, people would invite me places. I'd be like, no, I can't afford it. Nope, can't afford it. Nope, I can't do it. Oh, that's too expensive. Notice my words were creating an identity in which I couldn't afford things. And so this thing that kept happening, and then one day I went, wow, I keep energizing exactly what I don't want to have happen. So how do I change that? And I had this aha to basically start saying different, like creating a different sort of identity for myself. So people would say, hey, do you want to do this? I'd say, I'd love to, but ask me next time. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. And but I'm busy. Can you ask me next time? So I just kept like basically telling myself, yes, I would love to go to dinner. Yes, I'd love to fly to Africa. Yes, I'd like to go swim with dolphins in Bimini, right? All things that I have now done. At the time, in my sort of system and in my makeup, I was creating the story that I couldn't afford things. So I had to change the identity, right? People who struggle with weight, they identify as being overweight. They also identify as not being good enough. They identify as not feeling worthy. They identify as having a problem with food. They identify as having a slow metabolism. And so, what you want to do is catch those sort of labels in the moment and then learn how to adjust them, right? So if this is an aha, lots of love. If you're listening and this resonates with you, please give us some love, share a comment. Please share this wherever you think anyone would listen and benefit from hearing this, because I believe, and maybe I'll start a revolution at some point. I think I already am in some way in my own little world, but I believe that almost anything can be changed. And I've seen miracles and the impossible happen. And part of that is one, shifting the identity, two, relabeling, and three, believing that it's possible for you to have a shift. And this is one of the hardest things that we get up against in our lives is we get used to identifying as having a problem. And so we keep recreating a problem we're comfortable with instead of being uncomfortable not having a problem. Right? I used to say right after grad school, I was like, I want to start a support group for people with no problems. Like, let's hang out and talk about possibilities. But if you notice, if people don't have something to talk about, they get uncomfortable in the silence. And yet, the silence, the nonverbal, is where the healing can happen, is where the transformation can happen, is where the epiphany can happen, is where you become someone and something totally, totally different. And, there's a lot of ways to get yourself into those things. Breath work is an amazing way. Getting energy work, amazing way to sort of activate these like non-verbal healing capacities inside of each of us. And so if you believe that you have something that you cannot change, you're right. Right? If you believe you can't afford it, you're right. If you believe it's not possible, you're right. And so the body, every time you deliver the body a message about what it can and cannot do, it goes, you're right. You're right? We'll give an example of Roger Bannister. So Roger Bannister was the first ever sprinter to break the 4-minute mile, right? People used to say it can't be done. It's impossible. And Roger Bannister went, well, I wonder if it's possible. The minute he broke that record, a ton of people right after him also broke the 4-minute mile. Right? And so, what if we start normalizing breaking sort of the limitations of diagnoses, of I can'ts or it's not possible. Because when you keep like re-energizing that something is wrong with your body is all water. It goes, okay, you're right? Just like when you tell yourself I'm broke, you're like, oh, you're right. I can't, you're right. You start saying I can, opens up new neural pathways in the body for the body to begin to create a new pattern, a new formation, a new possibility. You know, every second of every day, every second of every minute, right? 10,000 cells in the body die and 10,000 new cells are formed. And so that's why with the physical body can regenerate its entire body in 7 years' time. Some organs regenerate in months, right? And so if you keep labeling something and those cells keep turning over into new cells, those new cells are going to take on an old identity or an old pattern. And so it really is about beginning to alleviate yourself of the problem by stopping telling yourself you have a symptom. And so instead of saying, I have a weight problem, I can't lose weight, you start saying, I wonder what my body's capable of creating. Instead of saying you can't change something, a problem that's happened with you your whole life. Like I had a healing experience this weekend in Florida and I met with a healer. It was an amazing experience, something that I never thought I would do. And I totally had this complete rebirth happen. And things that I thought weren't possible became possible and there was no talking involved. And so we open ourselves up to a world of things we didn't even know we were capable of. Cool. I love that. Natalie says, she writes in from Mexico, I'm a breathwork facilitator, and I totally agree with you. Yeah. If we can learn to use oxygen and a plethora of oxygen in the body to knock our cognitive brain out of thinking it needs to be in control, we can then drop into these energies in the body to begin to open up brand new neural pathways and create a spiritual experience in which you're kind of on this like almost like a trip that doesn't need plant medicine, that doesn't need other things. It just needs your consciousness. And, I am a huge proponent of using your breath, using your consciousness to alter your states so that you can transform, evolve, and heal in a deeper way. Now, talking about it sometimes is very helpful. Sometimes we just need to vent, we just need to get it out. My philosophy for myself is like, you have permission to vent for a day. If you're going to vent for longer than a day, then you better go do something about it. Right? So stop complaining about the things you say you want to change and start doing something about it. Research somatic exercises, like research breath work. Find a practitioner that resonates with you. Do things that allow you to be in an altered state of consciousness, but still be conscious, right? Now, if you need to go do plant medicine, that's your journey. I'm not here to judge or criticize. I just know there's a lot of overindulgence in those things. It's become very popular. And I also know that there's a alternative way to do it without ingesting drugs, right? Without ingesting sort of different plant medicines that might totally alter your consciousness. A lot of people who do ayahuasca, they say, "Oh my God, I thought I was going to die." And, for me, I'm like, I don't think I want to sign up for that program. But I also spent 10 years doing breath work, changing the vibration in my body. And so there are so many different ways in which you can reach an altered state of consciousness and be as present as you possibly can. And the more present you become with your body, what's happening inside your body, right? So here's a little tip, right? Is to go ahead and one second, and I'll walk you through it. To go ahead and put your hands on a body part that maybe has been bugging you. Maybe it's lower abdomen, maybe you've had some throat stuff, or you are afraid to speak your truth. Maybe you've had brain fog, or you feel like a lack of vitality. So go ahead and put your hands on that body part, right? Whatever that is. And then I'm going to do it with you. And we're just going to, I ate right before I got in here. My belly's like, woohoo, feeling some stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just put my hands on my abdomen. And so you're going to put your hands somewhere on a body part. And you're just going to put your hands on that body part and close your eyes if you'd like to close your eyes. If you'd rather keep them open, keep them open. And you're just going to kind of put your energy and your attention on that body part. So the way that I relate to this is I have a 10-year-old. I know what it's like when my 10-year-old was 3 and throwing a temper tantrum, right? But we as adults throw temper tantrums all the time. And so when your body part is speaking out, it's throwing a temper tantrum, the way to get a kid through a temper tantrum is to be space for them. The other way to get the kid to stop throwing the temper tantrum is to match the energy of whatever they are expressing. And so if you do the first one, right, and you just hang out in space with whatever body part you have your hands on, there's nothing to fix, there's no problem to solve, there's nothing wrong. Right? All you're doing is trying to stay present with the energy long enough. And what you do is you put your attention on your hands and on your hands touching that spot in your body. There you go. And you just hang out with it. Now, you're not looking to change the symptom. You're not looking to alleviate or resolve. You're just looking to listen. When you are in conflict with someone you care deeply about, whether it's a friendship, a business partnership, an intimate relationship, and that person doesn't listen to you, guess what? We turn up the volume. So part of the beginning journey of this is to hang out with the symptom without trying to change it, without making it wrong, without judging you, and just sit with it long enough to listen. And now you're not listening cognitively with your brain, you're listening energetically with your body, with your vibration, with its energy. And the minute I say that, I start to feel some shifts happening in my belly, right? It's like, I'm just going to hang out for information. The body wants to be heard. Doesn't like to be told. It doesn't like to be projected at. It doesn't like to be diagnosed, right? The body can't help you heal if you are delivering to it the wrong diagnoses. So the best recourse is to not diagnose it at all. Right? I have several people I've worked with in the past who've been diagnosed with cancer. And then I say, how did you start to heal? And they said, I didn't let anyone know I had it. I refused to be seen as a victim. And so for all of you out there, some of you are really comfortable seeing yourself as a victim to your body, right? Seeing yourself as a victim to your body. You are not a victim. And I know that might be hard to hear, but guess what? You start to empower yourself. Okay, so what can I do to empower myself? right? If you don't know about finances and you want to change your finances, you can empower yourself by hanging around people who are good at finances. You can empower yourself by reading books, by listening to podcasts. You can empower yourself by watching movies around money, right? You can empower yourself by hanging out with people. I just listened to a statistic today on a podcast, and it said when you hang out with, and I think this study was from, or at least Vanessa Van Edwards shared this study, and she studies human behavior, really fascinating human. So please feel free to go check her out. And what the study showed is you can be like, I was on an airplane this morning and then on an airplane yesterday, and the energy of who I was sitting next to, both airplanes, was delightful. Learned a lot. You can be sitting at a coffee shop next to someone, or on an airplane next to someone, or in a restaurant next to someone, and if their energetic composition is a high vibration, if they are a, sort of high functioning, if they're successful, if they have like a driven spirit, if they don't give up, if they, are successful in an area of their life, and you just sit next to them, you don't even ever have to have a conversation with them, your productivity levels can go up by 15%. And I believe the study said that in contrast, if you hang out with someone who is not motivated, who is a victim, who's always depressed or complaining or judging or pointing the finger at someone else, and you hang out with them in your space, you can lower your productivity. I believe the percentage was around the same, so 15%. So there is real information. And so when you are the person that's delivering the negative message to your body goes down in productivity and what it can transform and what it can heal, right? Crazy. So the way to change that is to change the vibration internally in your body. I think we've become a culture obsessed with fixing, and I believe we need to become a culture obsessed with elevating, obsessed with expanding, obsessed with evolving. Because when we do that, like lower vibration energies cannot exist in a higher vibration state. I'll say that again. Lower vibration energies cannot exist in a higher vibration state. And so check this out. Our bodies, right, have billions of cells in them at all times. And every second, 10,000 cells die while 10,000 new cells come into the body. Right. And so those cells, that means that in a 24-hour period, it's 864 million cells, new cells come into the body, right? New possibilities come into the body. And so if you can allow yourself the possibility of increasing the energetic environment, the higher vibration environment in your physical body, and those new cells come into your body in an environment that's high vibration, that's possibilities, evolving, breathwork, energy healing, massage, whatever it is that you sort of resonate, hanging out with fun people, high vibration people. Guess what? Those 864 million cells that came in the last 24 hours, guess what? They titrate to the higher vibration energy. But if you spend all of your energy trying to get rid of lower vibration, guess what? All you're doing is those 864 million new cells that are coming in a 24-hour period. They're like, they go to the lowest common denominator. And so your job is to create the lowest common denominator in your body as being a very high vibration. And that's where the magic happens, right? There's no secret formula except for pay attention to surrounding yourself with people, with energies, with experiences that elevate your state naturally. You shouldn't have to work hard at elevating your state. What becomes hard is just reminding yourself to get out of your old habits and patterns and start to open the door to new habits and patterns and where you heal, right? And so if this is your first time ever encountering me, welcome. I work with people all over the world. I love doing what I do. And if you resonate with this show, with this, please subscribe, hit the like button, send us a comment, share it with someone that you know, share it on your page, share it on social media. The more people that we can get to hear this message, it's about elevating each other. And I don't know about you, but I think it's time that we surround ourselves with energies that elevate, raise, and expand our possibilities in the world instead of the other. So thank you again for taking the time out of your day to listen. If you ever want to call in, write in, you have a question you want me to resolve, feel free to type it in, and can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now.
Katherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them, and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.